लगभग 2 हफ्ते पहले हम चर्चा कर रहे थे कि आषाढ़ पूर्णिमा आ रही है तो वी शुड प्लान सम एक्टिविटी फॉर इट। तो एक बात तो क्लियर थी दैट वी हैव टू डू दिस स्पेशल फंक्शन एंड क्रिएट ए गुड opportunity for us to understand and practice Dhamma. तो भंते जी ने मुझसे कहा था कि why don't we try to find out references to Asa in the Tipitaka and see what is supposed to be done, what was done in the past, and what is the tradition. And also we put it in the context of our country. There is a context because it is not something which was invented by Lord Buddha. It existed even earlier. So I spent some time in trying to do search in the Sutta Central and elsewhere. तो एक चीज तो ये स्पष्ट हुई. So I think I'll share the screen and एक छोटा document बनाया है. So it will help me to put forth things in context. ये जो period है from Ashad to Kartik, it has always been a period of great spiritual significance in Indian traditions from times antiquity. और कई नामों से जैसे आज गुरु पूर्णिमा भी मानी जाती है. So we want to believe that our teacher Lord Buddha started teaching on that day, and therefore we celebrate it as Guru Purnima also. And we also celebrate it by इस दिन धम्मचक्र सूत्र प्रकाशित हुआ था, तो हम लोग इसको धम्म दिवस के रूप में मनाते हैं. लेकिन दूसरे ट्रेडिशंस में उनके अपने अपने स्टोरीज हैं, पौराणिक, सेमी हिस्टोरिकल. One thing is very clear कि जो ये tradition है, it is much earlier than Lord Buddha. In fact, there is a sutta in which Buddhist monks are criticized कि वो वर्षावाद के दौरान भी घूमते रहते हैं और नहीं रास्ते जमीन के ऊपर कीड़े पड़े होते हैं, उनको मर जाते हैं, और they trample on the seedlings which have been planted, और paddy को grow की जाती है. And when Buddha heard about it, he made this regulation. And exactly, it's not clear. A few years after formation of Sangha. और गुरु पूर्णिमा के भी और भी कई ट्रेडिशनल भारत के ट्रेडिशन में महत्व है. कई लोग इसको व्यास पूर्णिमा मानते हैं कि वेद व्यास का जन्म इस दिन हुआ था. वेद व्यास is the great compiler, editor of the whole of the Indian spiritual knowledge. Those who believe in Shiva would like to believe that on this day he started teaching. Again, same thing. He came out of the great deep samadhi and agreed to teach it to his 7 सप्तऋषि जो कहे जाते हैं, उनको उन्होंने योग का जो comprehensive vision है उस टीच किया, शुरू किया पढ़ाना, and it carried on for a very long time because he is generally believed to be the first yogi, and those people who believe in it, they have that story. And there is also a tradition in Hindu tradition as well as in Jains, the concept of Chaturmas, 4 months, which starts from Ekadashi of Ashad to Ekadashi of Kartik, 4-month period, which is उसके अंदर बेसिक कई उसमें हेल्थ के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कुछ फूड्स के बारे में भी एडवाइसेस हैं कि ये नहीं खाने चाहिए इस महीने में, ये नहीं खाओ इस महीने में, ये नहीं खाओ. And then there are very interesting kind of prohibitions. कि इन 4 महीनों में कोई भी एक्टिव एक्टिविटी नहीं होगी, कोई सेलिब्रेशन नहीं होगी, कोई मैरिज नहीं होगी, कोई और so called auspicious events will not happen. And what will happen? You observe fasts, you observe, you jap tap and so on. So spiritual activities. So these 4 months somehow have been recognized as a period suitable for spiritual activities of various kinds. So we are actually following a tradition which has been established for thousands of years in our country. And of course, as Lord Buddha's Shravaka Sangha, we are following the tradition as laid down by the Buddha. तो फिर हमने कोशिश की देखने की कि सूत्रों में वासा के बारे में कहाँ कहाँ रेफरेंस आता है, तो एक बात समझ में आई कि वो अधिकतर थेरवाद में विनय पिटक में बहुत चर्चा है वास की, बहुत उसमें सूत्र हैं जिनमें वास शब्द आता है. एंड देन देयर आर, व्हेन आई रेड देम, सम ऑफ देम, most of them are the occasions when Buddha laid down the rules. उस भाषा में क्योंकि सब लोग इकट्ठे रह रहे थे, तो like young boys, novices who just became come to the monastery, they would do some things, something out of ignorance, something out of general boyish naughtiness and things like that. So I found in most of the suttas where in Vinayapitaka the reference to Varshavas, there are rules laid down, whole description given of the event, and then this rule was laid down. This is so many of them. Then I focused on the other Sutta Pitaka, and there are few places, I couldn't find many. So I noticed कि भाई वासा जो है, it has been a very significant occasion in teaching, and also many events happen in the life of the Sangha. For example, I think this is one interesting thing we found was that it was on Ashad Purnima that the great disciple Mahakassapa made the proposal because they went to Rajgah from Kushinagar and they said we'll have a first Sangiti. So that great event for which we are eternally grateful, which resulted in compilation of all the Tipitaka, was started on the first day of the Vasa. उसके announcement आषाढ़ पूर्णिमा के दिन की गई थी और सभी दीक्षाओं, and this is the kind of interesting way. He says, please, I ask the Sangha to listen. If it seems appropriate to Sangha should appoint 500 monks to spend the rainy season at Rajgah and recite the teaching and monastic law together there. No other monk should enter the rainy season residence at Rajgah. This is the motion. And then he says, if anybody has any objection, please say so. Otherwise, you say sadhu, sadhu. So all of them, all the Sangha says sadhu, and decision is done. And then we know the story. 499 are selected and one is waiting. And so the great disciple, Venerable Ananda, attained arahantship on the morning of the Vasa day. Just on the day Vasa was to start and the recitation was to start, he attained the arahantship. So that's also a very massive event in our history of the Buddhist Sangha and Buddhist canon, right? Because he laid down he spoke out all the suttas जो हम पढ़ते हैं, वो सब में हम देखा होगा एवं में sutta आता है. This is all Ananda saying मैंने ऐसे सुना था. It's therefore a very momentous occasion from the point of view of the teaching which we are getting here. Then there are some suttas which I found very interesting. एक अंगुत्तर निकाय में है 11.13. Or in fact, I must mention that in most of the Vinaya Pitaka and as well as in there, one activity which is commonly seen, which the monks are doing, is sieving of the robes. So they are doing this during the Vasa period. So this I've taken some small extracts from here. So Buddha commences the rain's residence in Savatthi. And as Sakyan by the name Nandiya, he also says, I'll do this. So they observe the rain's retreat along with the Buddha. So I presumed he must be a monk, obviously. So when I read the sutta, I found it was mentioned that he was doing whatever work he had to do. ऐसा शब्द वहाँ पे देखे थे उसमें. There he applied himself to his work. So I thought it must be his meditation. And from time to time went to see the Buddha. And then at the end of 3 months, he goes and says to Buddha, "Sir, now please give me consolidated instructions." And there Buddha addresses him as Kulputto. So Kulputto means a householder. So then I traced the search original, कहाँ से उसके comment है क्या किसी का, and then I found a comment by Bhante Sujata that it seems that at that time even householders went to monasteries and stayed there for 3 months. During whatever little work they had to do, they would do that their householders' work, whatever it had to, and then rest of the time they would be sitting with the monks and doing all the activities of chanting, study, cleaning, seva, and they had the opportunity of Buddha being available. Imagine the situation of householders who have access to Buddha for 3 months. So such a joyful thing to know that this has been the tradition actually. So it would be good that we also really will keep that spirit alive in ourselves. तो फिर वो भगवान से जो पूछते हैं तो उनको क्या सजेशन देते हैं देखें because at the end of 3 months he is seeking, he has been interacting with भगवान से वो interact करते आ रहे हैं हमेशा पूछते जा रहे हैं because उसमें ना बार बार जाते थे पूछते थे ये दिक्कत है and then at the end he says please tell me this is the question, we spend our life in various ways, which of these should we practice, which means जो उसने देखा होगा वहाँ पे ये सब हो रहा है तो मुझे क्या करना चाहिए. Then what does the Buddha advise? What should he develop? Shraddha, Shilva, virtues, Shil, Aradhya Viryo, वीर्य डेवलप करना चाहिए. वही सक्सीड करते हैं लाइफ में. ये ethical succeed, not unethical. Faithful succeed, not the faithless. Energetic succeed, not the lazy. Mindful succeed, upatti sati aradha ko. The mindful and they succeed. Samahito aradha ko. Those with immersion, samadhi. Then panyava aradha ko. Those who are wise people, they succeed. And then it doesn't stop there. Then after a lot of some more material there, when grounded on these 6 things, then you should develop these 5 further things. As if these 6 were not sufficient enough. So what are those things? I thought there must be something very profound and see this, what Buddha takes as a profound teaching, which a householder should develop. Tathagata manusareya, or we will say Tathagata Buddhanusati, you put it in the words which are familiar to us. This will be Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati. Then instead of Sanghanusati, he tells him Kalyana Mitte Anusareyasi. So he should pay heed to this, and then I wrote down, you should recollect your good friends. And wish I am very fortunate, so fortunate to have good friends who advise me and instruct me out of kindness and compassion. In this way, you should establish mindfulness internally based on good friends and so on. Then Chaganusati is another thing which you do, and Devatanusati. So he's telling him that ये तो करना ही है आपको, ये तो करना चाहिए. आपको एनर्जेटिक होना चाहिए, श्रद्धावान होना चाहिए, शीलवान होना चाहिए, सतीमान होना चाहिए, समाहित चित्त होना चाहिए, प्रज्ञा डेवलप करनी चाहिए. बट ये हो गया तो फिर ये सब करना है. So this shows the importance of these things in the householder's life. हमको ये सब करना चाहिए. And then what he says, a noble disciple who has developed these 11 qualities gives up bad, unskillful qualities and doesn't cling to anything. So he's telling them that is the way to freedom. That's the way for freedom which you can follow. It was quite interesting for me, firstly, to know that householders were staying in monasteries and staying for 3 months there. मुझे नहीं इसका सूचना नहीं थी. Then what was the question जो हमारा मन में था कि करते क्या थे लोग उसमें रेंज रिट्रीट में. तो वो इनडायरेक्टली कई सूत्रों से मिला. जैसे एक सूत्रम उत्तर निकाय में here Sariputta is having a dialogue. वो Anand Sariputta see the dialogue. वो उनसे कुछ प्रश्न पूछते हैं. तो अब Sariputta कहते हैं I know you know it. Come on, tell me now. So Ananda gives him full knowledge. Sadhu, बहुत अच्छा. And then other monks are there, and Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta praises him. And he says, what does he do? Friend Ananda enters the range in monasteries in which there are senior monks who are learned, who know the tradition, who are holders of Dhamma and Vinaya and Matika. Interesting, this word is found there. And having approached them periodically, he questions them and quizzes them. How it is, this Venerable Self, what is the meaning of this? They make open for friend Ananda what wasn't open, make plain what wasn't plain, dispel doubt or various doubtful points. So this is what Ananda, Venerable Ananda does in Rain's retreat. That is, he goes to the seniors, asks them, मेरे ये doubt है, ये doubt है, ये doubt है, and gets them cleared out. Obviously, he must be practicing during the rest of the time, and whenever doubts arises, he's going there. So that is a clear-cut message available what the people were doing in his retreat. Then another sutta.
I'm sorry. Should we conclude that therefore the beginnings of Abhidhamma are already there?
Yeah. You can see that. तभी वो अपने आप ही underline हो गया. मैंने नहीं किया था ready underline. Yeah, because of the word not being in the dictionary. So Matika was there. He's saying, he goes to them. Then there's another very moving sutta, at least it moved me enormously. Again about Rain's retreat. I mean, Rain's retreat may have seemed incidental. तो एक सीनियर अरहंत है यशोदा, वो अपने 500 disciples के साथ सावथी आते हैं with the intention of spending the Rain's retreat there. But as the stories go, वो लोग वहाँ पे जब अपना कमरा ले रहे होते हैं accommodation, they make a lot of noise. And Buddha calls them and says them, please go out. You're not suitable to sit in my company. And he tells Yashoda to lay off his disciples के सब यहाँ नहीं रहा. And see what is their response. Imagine a senior disciple like Yashoda being told, go. Yes, Reverend Sir, said these monks. And after replying to the gracious one, rising from their seats, worshipping and circumambulating the gracious one, putting their dwelling places in order, picking up their robes and bowls, they went on walking towards Vaji land, which means towards Vaishali. And there they went to the river Vagyu, I don't know, Vagyu Mudda, many of this name se hai koi bhi. And then they enter upon the Rain's retreat there. यहाँ तो निकाल दिया, वहाँ करेंगे. Now see their mentality, what they say. What is Venerable Yashoda saying there? Then Venerable Yashoda, having entered upon the retreat, addresses those monks. We were dismissed friends by the gracious one who desires our welfare, who seeks our benefit, who is compassionate out of compassion for us. Well, now, Venerable friends, we must live in such a way that the gracious one will be pleased with our living. So it's so wonderful to see that accomplished monk has this attitude towards admonition. And one could take it as an insult. One could take it कि भगा दिया हमको, ये क्या बात हुई, ये तो ठीक नहीं हुआ, दुश्मन कर रहे थे. And you can have all kinds of logical, rational arguments against the decision. See the development of the person and how Shraddha he has. And then they go, and as this sutta goes on, 2 or 3 महीने खूब काम करते हैं. And at the end of Rain's retreat, all of them had realized the 3 avinyas. All became arhants. Now, the further discussion goes, the gracious one, having dwelt at Savatthi for as long as he wished, went on walking towards Vaishali, उसी direction में गए, and while walking, he arrived at Vaishali. And while he was sitting in that great wood, महावन जो है, जो उसका कुटागार, केबल्ड हॉल कुटागार, तो वहां पे उन्होंने जब चित्त को चारों तरफ देखा, तो वो आनंद से कहते हैं कि ये जो नदी है वागुमुंडा, उसके बैंक पे मुझे लग रहा है वहां से कुछ लाइट आ रही है, एंड ऐसे बहुत मुझे प्रसन्नता हो रही है, तो लगता है मुझे वहां जाना चाहिए. बट वो कहते हैं आनंद, ऐसा करो, तुम एक दूत को भेज दो वहां पे, और उनसे कहो वहां पे जो भिक्षु है कि टीचर वांट्स टू सी यू. एंड व्हाट आर द वर्ड्स ही यूजेस? सत्था आयस्मन्ते आमन्ते थी भाई जी, सत्था आयस्मन्तम दर्शन काम. सी द वर्ड. उसका मतलब मैं उस शास्त्रा जो है आपके दर्शन की कामना रखते हैं. That's the kind of feeling the great Buddha has towards his disciples, those who attained it. It was pretty. This word was really, because they translated it. The teacher summons you. So I thought, let me see what exactly is there, and this is what I find. Sattha ayasmantam dasana काम. आपकी अब दर्शन की कामना है हमारा. So that's the one side issue which influenced me greatly. Then there's this Ichanangala Sutta. Ichanangala Sutta. Here it's a clear mention. Buddha tells to the monks, I wish to go on retreat for 3 months. Don't disturb me. No one should approach me except for one who brings my alms food. So Buddha going on rains retreat. Just visualize that. And then what is he doing? Then after the retreat, he comes back and then he tells the monks, oh, maybe तुम्हारे दूसरे जो भिक्षु हैं, दूसरे traditions के पूछेंगे, तुम्हारा टीचर क्या करता है 3 महीने वहां पे? What does he do? What meditation does he do? So he says, what you should tell, that I practice आनापानसति समाधिना को आउसो भगवा वसावासम बहुलम विसृजति. वर्षावास में इसका बहुलीकरण करते हैं. किसका? आनापान सती समाधिना. आनापान सती के आधार पर समाधि डेवलप करते हैं. Does he really need to develop? Does Buddha need to really practice to develop samadhi? Still he does it. That's a message for us, all of us, all the senior accomplished teachers and masters. See, this is what Buddha does in the rains retreat. And this then brings me to the most wonderful sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta, which gives you a kind of panoramic view of what was happening during the. It's a inference, but not really my inference alone, because in the later it is established that. तो क्या सीन है उसका? आनापानसति सूत्र का सीन आपने शुरू का जो पोर्शन है, हम तो सिर्फ वही इफेक्टिव पोर्शन चैंट करते हैं. उसका शुरू का सीन जो है वो बहुत प्रोफाउंड सीन है. And says it is full moon night of Pavarna ceremony, which is the last day of the, at the end of Asa, there is the Pavarna ceremony. उसकी पूर्णिमा का दिन है, पूर्णिमा की रात है. तो भगवान बैठे हैं और वो देखते हैं सारे भिक्षु हैं. And what does he see? He's so happy on seeing the monks and practicing stronger. And what does he see? He sees, and then he praises this is a wonderful Sangha and so on and on. In this, what he sees is that there are people, all the monks, huge number of monks. कहीं पे एक सीनियर मॉन्क ने 10 भिक्षुओं को रखा हुआ, किसी के पास 20 हैं, किसी के पास 30 हैं, किसी के पास 40 हैं, और वो उसमें इंस्ट्रक्शन दिए जा रहे हैं ऐसे साधना करनी, जो भी उनके सवाल है. So there is a kind of a university where senior professors are teaching these students how to fulfill reach the path of enlightenment. And what are the different things are being taught? And then Buddha lays down himself what is being done there. In this Sangha of Bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus who abide devoted to development of 4 foundations of mindfulness, development of 4 right kinds of striving, 4 bases of spiritual power, 5 faculties, 5 powers, 7 enlightenment factors, noble eightfold path, development of loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity, meditation on foulness, permanence, perception of impermanence, and those bhikkhus avoid development of mindfulness of breathing. So this is the whole spectrum of practices which are being done. Not one, there's not just one thing which everybody does. See how many variety of practices are being done. And those accomplished masters know कि इस ग्रुप को ये सिखाना है तो भैया जिसको ये सीखना इधर आ जाओ, जिसको ये सीखना इधर आ जाओ. And then कोई young novice कैसे decide करेगा मुझे क्या सीखना है? His receptor will tell him after interviewing him, understanding him, this is the practice which you should do now, and then he'll go there and study. That's such a wonderful thing. When you read that whole sutta, that Buddha is seeing these panoramic scenes of hundreds of his monks being admonished by senior monks and taught, and he says, "I'm so happy seeing this Sangha. In this Sangha, there's no one who is non-Arya. They're all Sotapanna, Sagdagami, Anagami, and Arhants, and accomplished masters." And he's so happy, he says, "I'll stay for 1 more month." And that's how the 4-month Vasa situation arose. So he says, "I'll stay for 1 more month." And then at the end of the month, and then what is going on in that month? Again, it is written, being instructed by the senior mendicants, the junior mendicants realized a higher distinction than they had before. अगर वो श्रोतापन थे, तो then the next stage of realization and so on. So this is what is happening in the Vasa, and this is the happening at the Kubbarama monastery. Anapanasati Sutta was given at Kubbarama monastery. So this is what we learn from suttas. Actually, what activity is going on in the Vasa. So getting inspired from that, it has been a great inspiration for me personally, that we should certainly use this time. Those of us who can, devote as much time as possible. And the great point was that there is a sutta in which he says that householder was doing whatever work he had to do and staying in monastery, and rest of the time he's devoting to. And because in those days, during rainy seasons, people would not have much business, they would not be going around too much. So whatever minimal work has to be done, he would do for his livelihood, and rest of the time he's devoting to. So that was a wonderful model for us. No? That during this period, whatever time is required for us to our household duties which have to be done, which are not, we don't, during this period, for example, that I can very easily see why in the Indian tradition it has been said that no marriages, auspicious ceremonies, nothing will be done. Basically, because वो होगी तो सारा ध्यान उसी में चला जाए, तो कुछ नहीं करना आपको सिर्फ या तो फास्टिंग करनी है. There's a particular type of fast in which the person eats on alternate days, whole of the 3 months. So these are, and then certain kind of foods are allowed. That Ayurvedic aspect is also there. But then most thing, jap, tap, naam, smaran, jo bhi karna hai kari. So that you devote yourself to spiritual activities for these 4 months. So we can see that it is a part of the Indian affairs for thousands of years. Somehow we have forgotten that. And thanks to our association with the Bhikkhu Sangha, we came to know, because before that we didn't really put any attention on these things at all. As lay meditators, we were not aware of Vasa and significance of it, and what to do and what not to do. Now, thanks to the Sangha, we are aware of the benefits of it. And now we have studied from the suttas. There's ample instructions available what should be done. I would say You can choose any or all of these meditations, whichever is appropriate to you, which has been advised by your friends. Practice that. So that's the way the first part of the that is understanding vasa. What actually is a vasa? How did this concept, how is it reflected in the teachings of the Buddha? So that's what I've done. I hope Panteji is satisfied. He had given me this task, so whatever I could do, I tried to do that. Then come to the second part, namely, what are we going to do in this lesson? After trying out, thinking about a few things, sharing with Bhanteji, finally, this is what I thought we would be doing. पिछले साल हमने विभिन्न संज्ञाओं की चर्चा की और समझा था कि वो संज्ञा हमारी परसेप्शन संज्ञा को पन्या में कन्वर्ट करने के लिए क्या क्या करने की आवश्यकता है, कई संज्ञाओं की चर्चा की और उनमें से देखा था कि जो फंडामेंटल है वो 3 संज्ञाएं, अनिच्छ संज्ञा, दुःख संज्ञा, अनर्थ संज्ञा. And if we develop these sannyas, samadhi is there. So that is the straight route to liberation. What is anicca and what is dukkha and what is sanya? The different paradigms. You can work on 5 khandas, 6 ayatanas, 2 most important ones. So we'll work on both. And why will you work? We'll try to, I will try to lay some foundation. Firstly, I don't know how many of you are aware, I was not aware, that on this very day the Buddha left the palace. So on this day the great renunciation took place. Isn't it? Somewhere else I had read that it was on this day that he was conceived. The Bodhisattva descended from the Tusita Devaloka into the mother's womb on this day. That also is mentioned. Anyway, but these are some of the commentatorial literature that is found. So we've all discussed it often, but I thought good we get it. Why did he leave this palace after all? You know, he has to find out the way out of existential suffering. And what is the basic? Birth, old age, sickness, death, and rebirth. And this cycle goes on and on and on. It became absolutely transparent to him. He just needed some signals, and some of the traditions believe that those signals, that those 4 sides, were actually devas who came and took up that shape so as to prompt him to move in the direction in which he was destined to move. Whichever be the truth, doesn't matter. But the fact is that this did happen. I mean, it is generally, mostly it is believed, of course. In the suttas, of course, it is said that this reflection arose in him. In Daryapireshna Sutta, it is mentioned that this reflection arose in him. Why am I, who is subject to old age and death, should keep on seeking some pleasures which are transient, which are not permanent? Why should I seek? Why don't I seek something which is permanent, which is free from birth and death, this cycle? So this kind of reflection, find there. And then, after all this story, we don't have to repeat. Finally, on this day, we have the धम्मचक्र प्रवर्तन सूत्र का प्रादुर्भाव हुआ. भगवान ने अपने 5 पुराने मित्रों को तो उसमें प्रथम आर्य सत्य क्या था? Can somebody recite for me? First from memory, otherwise from Sutra book. What is the first noble truth?
Sadhguru.
Please go ahead.
Jatipi dukkha, jarapi dukkha, vyadipi dukkham, maranampi dukkham, apriyehi samprayogo dukkha, priyehi viprayogo dukkha, yamapi iksham nalabati tamapi dukkham, संकितेन पंच उपादान खंडा दुखा।
थैंक यू। तो कुछ चीजें तो क्वाइट ऑब्वियस ही हैं, जाति, birth is suffering, age is suffering. Some of us know it very directly. We don't need any further discussion on that. And that, of course, is the very word itself is frightening and causing suffering to many of us. Then, yeah, जो हम चाहते हैं वो नहीं मिलता, प्रिय जो है उससे विछोह हो जाता है, जो अप्रिय है उससे संयोग हो जाता है. Now, these are hard facts of life. उसमें कोई फिलॉसफी या कोई ऐसा दर्शन इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. इट इज नॉट एनी ग्रेट इंसाइट इनटू इट, क्वाइट ऑब्वियस. वेयर इज द इंसाइट? व्हिच इज द इंसाइट देयर? द लास्ट लाइन इज द इंसाइट. संकितेन पंच उपादान खंडा. क्या मतलब हुआ कि जो 5 खंड हैं उनके प्रति हमारा नैसर्गिक उपादान है. Right from the birth, we have the attachment to that, to the body, feelings, रूप, वेदना, संज्ञा, संस्कार, संखार और विज्ञान. Body, feelings, perceptions, volitions, and sensitive consciousness. We have an intrinsic, congenital attachment to it, clinging to it, not just wish, massive clinging to this. And he says that is the real cause of suffering. So the question will arise, of course, 5 खंड तो है भी, हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो, बट ये उपादान जो जुड़ गया उसका क्या कारण है? तो समझाते हैं कि हम उसके सत्य स्वरूप को पहचानते नहीं. We are not recognizing the true nature of 5 khandas, and we try to foolishly identify them as me and mine, while they are basically anicca, dukkha and anatta. किस सूत्र में ये बात स्पष्ट तरह से बताई गई? ये तीनों लक्षण किस सूत्र में क्लियरली बताए जाते हैं? 5 खंडों के बारे में किसमें कहा जाता है कि ये
अनंत लक्षण सूत्र.
अनंत लक्षण सूत्र. वेरी गुड. There he lays down the whole kind of reflections in a way ताकि हमको समझ में आए. And he is putting questions. Question पूछ रहे हैं और जवाब मांग रहे हैं. It's a kind of reflective contemplation. भाई ये 5 चीजें जो हैं ये अनित्य हैं, और क्योंकि ये अनित्य हैं इसलिए दुख है. अनित्य दुख संज्ञा याद हो, शायद आपको याद हो. You can kind of revise it, have a look at that notes if you have. And then वो दुख है तो अनंत है. दुख अनंत संज्ञा मतलब हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है. हमारी आत्मा कैसे हो जाएगा कोई चीज? वो तो सुखद होनी चाहिए, वो तो हमारी अपनी है. It cannot be a cause of suffering. So that is not, वो हमारी आत्मा नहीं है. वो मैं, मेरा स्वरूप नहीं है, मेरा वास्तविक स्वरूप ये नहीं है. 5 खंडों में कोई भी चीज मेरा वास्तविक स्वरूप नहीं है. और दिक्कत ये है कि हम इसको कितना भी चांट भी कर लें, लेकिन ये बुद्धि के स्तर पे समझ भी लें थोड़ा बहुत, कई बार तो बुद्धि के स्तर पे ही नहीं समझ में आती काफी हद तक. और फिर उसके सेकंड लेवल की उसको हम इंटरनलाइज नहीं कर पाते. और उन्होंने जो मंत्र दिया भगवान ने एक तरह से कि इन 5 खंडों के बारे में क्या जानना है, ने तन्मम ने सोअमस्मि न मे सोवत्ताति एवं यथाभूतं सम्मपन्याय दट्ठब्दम. प्रज्ञापूर्वक इसको देखना चाहिए, देखना है इसको कि ये मेरा नहीं है, ये मैं नहीं हूँ, ये मेरी आत्मा नहीं है, मेरी आत्मा नहीं. ये मेरा वास्तविक स्वरूप नहीं है। आत्मा का मतलब वास्तविक स्वरूप मेरा ये नहीं। तो अगर हम ये बात सचमुच में हमारी समझ में आ जाए पहले, और फिर ये हम समझने की, इसको समझने के बावजूद भी हम इसके अनुसार जीवन क्यों नहीं जी पाते, तो शायद कुछ कुछ ना हमारे जीवन में ये उतरने लगे। तो मुझे लगा कि ये प्रयास करने की जरूरत है, इसका प्रयास किया जाए। ऑब्वियसली हमारी सबकी अपनी मेरी लिमिटेशंस हैं, मेरी भी, हम सब तो जितना हमारी समझ में आता है, जितना हमारा अपना अनुभव है साधना का, तो साधना ठीक है। तो देन विल ट्राई टू, मिलजुल के हम लोग इस बात को समझने का प्रयास करते हैं। ये 5 खंड क्या है, आई प्रिज्यूम वी नो, करने को भी चर्चा करेंगे। 5 खंड क्या है, क्या वो सचमुच में नित्य है, सचमुच में दुख से है, सचमुच में मेरे नहीं है, अनात्म है। अनात्म की कई चीजें हैं, अनात्म की आस्पेक्ट ये है कि वो मेरा नहीं है, ये बात भी है। मेरी आत्मा तो अब चलिए हम कह सकते हैं, हमें तो आत्मा और मेरे चक्कर में पड़ते ही नहीं, अरे चलो जाने, बट हम उसको मेरा तो मानते हैं। इस शरीर को तो मैं ही मानता हूँ मेरा ही है, और किसका है बताओ? कितनी लॉस्ट, मेरा नहीं है तो किसका है? किसी का तो होगा। That's the way we think. Everything should belong to somebody. So these kind of questions which prevent us from accepting these truths, let us formulate those questions in our own minds and try to answer them. That is the meditation we want to do for next 3 months. Every day, I hope everything will be possible for me. There's some issues, but since it is in the morning, I presume it will be possible for me, unless I fall very ill. So we'll try our best to understand it. And वो तभी संभव होगा जब आप लोग मुझसे पूछेंगे, अपने प्रश्न पूछेंगे। मैं बार बार कहता हूँ कि अगर मुझे कुछ समझ डेवलप हुई है पिछले 10 सालों में, तो अर्पण शर्मा का उसमें बहुत भारी रोल है। किस रूप में? by asking questions, question after question, question after questions. Hats off to such a fellow traveler. That's what has helped me to improve my understanding. So अगर इतनी बारीक चीज को हम अपने जीवन में उतारना चाहते हैं, सिर्फ समझने की बात नहीं, समझ तो हमको आ गई है, आई प्रिज्यूम अधिकतर को समझ आ गई। जो खंडों के लिए तो कम से कम कुछ खंडों की तो बात समझ में आ ही जाती है, कुछ की दिक्कत होती है उसको भी हम देख सकते हैं, बट ये इंटेलेक्चुअल समझ की बात नहीं है। हम इसको अपने जीवन में हृदयंगम करना चाहते हैं। वांट टू रियली लिव in such a way that I constantly feel it becomes a felt knowledge, not a cerebral knowledge, a felt knowledge. I am not this body. Not that I speak about it. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not. I'm just speaking. I can give a talk on it. Do I really come from my heart or do I come from here? That makes all the difference. Freedom comes from when this my internal heartfelt understanding. तो हम कोशिश करें, मेरा यही निवेदन है अपने से भी और आप सब से भी, let's all join together in trying to teach just 2-3 lines are there, internalize them in such a manner that they become our default mode of thinking. अभी तो डिफॉल्ट मोड हमारा ये है कि मैं यही हूँ, भाई मरा रे, बीमार हो रहा हूँ, दर्द हो रही है, उसने मुझे ऐसा कह दिया, उसको ऐसा नहीं कहना चाहिए था, मेरी बात नहीं समझते, मैं ठीक हूँ तुम गलत हो। You see those 5 khandas operating in different way. Oh, मेरी आंखों से दिख नहीं रहा है, आंखें भी मेरी, देखने वाला भी मैं. So these kind of stubborn illusions जो हैं हमारी, stubborn illusions, how do we really break them? The first step is to understand them at an intellectual level, and then try to figure out कि क्या कारण है. जैसे वो स्वामी शरणानंद की बड़ी ब्यूटीफुल लाइंस हैं कि अपने जाने हुए सत्य का आदर क्यों नहीं करते भाई. अब देखा जाए तो शरीर अनित्य है, ये मुझे बताने की जरूरत है क्या? Do I need to experience and check it? Do I, each and every Vedana that it is changing? Don't I know it? But still we'll do it. I'm not saying we'll not do it. But I'm just saying that, like Sant की वाणी होती है ना, it has a great power. कि अपने जाने हुए सत्य का तो आदर करो. अब वो क्यों नहीं हो पा रहा है? That is the real catch. क्यों नहीं हो पा रहा है? तो मेरा कुछ विचार होंगे, बट हो सकता है आपको कुछ और, because we have different experiences of life, different meditation experiences, different levels of understanding. So I may not be able to figure out all the reasons because I will be talking from my own experience. I will not be talking from any book. So आपसे मेरी निवेदन है, please feed me with the information. And I ask a question, because this is a reflective meditation. We are not doing samatha exercise. We are doing reflective exercise. So we'll be of course practicing samatha for some time. Every session, 1 घंटे में से 15 मिनट चित्त को शांत करें. But then we'll switch over to reflective exercise, to understanding this, meditating on the nature of the 5 khandhas, 6 ayatanas, meditating on them and understanding कहाँ दिक्कत क्या है, क्यों मेरे को ये मेरे जीवन में उतरता नहीं है. उसमें आप लोगों का सहयोग भी बहुत है. जितने भी लोग जुड़ेंगे, 10, 15, 20 जो भी रेगुलरली आ सकते हैं, कृपया feed that information to me, because that will help improve my understanding, and I'm grateful for that, and it will help me to help you to really internalize these things. They're very simple things, but very profound. But this is the crux of Sangha. If we can understand 5 खंड जो हैं वो, they are not mine, they are not me, they are not myself. They have penetrated into the 4 noble truths, because Sankhyattena Panchupadana Khanda, we have broken through it. Finished. We will be free, we will be liberated. To the extent which we can do, to that extent we will become liberated from the suffering. So I invite you all to help me, to join me. Let's practice it together, in really like a Sangha, the same spirit in which we find in Anapansati Sutta, monks sitting together, understanding Dhamma from each other, asking questions, get answering, and trying to get clarity. We are of course not of that caliber, there's no doubt. Then we can fill up each other's deficiency and create a situation that some things which I know, I tell you, some things which you know, you can tell me, and then the pool of knowledge, the pool of wisdom will build up. And we help each other to really say, yes, 5 khandhas are not mine, not me, not myself. And the depth to which we can say it, to that depth will be free. So that's my wish and aspiration. I all invite you to join.